Oh, baby, Bears fans are going to be fascinated with this episode of Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. Here's what's coming up on today's show. We're going to compare North Carolina quarterback Drake Maye to USC quarterback Caleb Williams and just kind of discuss if the Bears should draft a quarterback, and if they do, which quarterback should they lean toward. We got pros and cons for both of these guys, so stay tuned. Should be a fun episode here on Chicago Bears Now. Obviously, there's still the Justin Fields discussion part of this. What do you guys think? Do you still believe Justin Fields can work in Chicago? Type B for believer, D for don't. Because I'm still a Justin Fields believer. I'm just not sure I'm a Justin Fields can work in Chicago believer. As time goes on, I just think clock's ticking for that part of it. So B for believe you think he can still work in Chicago, or D for you no longer believe that can be the case. All right, we're going to start with Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback. Then we'll get to Drake Maye, so stay tuned for all of that. Let's break down the strengths and weaknesses of Caleb Williams on today's show. And let's start with the pros, then we'll get to the cons. Number one, and this is a lot of these pros and cons is kind of comparing to the other guy as well. He's got a lot of experience and more experience than Drake Maye when taking a look at these two guys. He's already started 31 career games. He's played in, I believe, 35 because his freshman year at Oklahoma, before he took over, he still got in 4 games when he was Spencer Rattler's backup. Then he took over for him. 31 career starts. He's going to start at least 2 or 3 more at USC. We'll see if he plays in a bowl game or not. But you're talking about a guy who will have, in the neighborhood of 35 college starts. That's almost 3 full seasons worth. That you like that coming out. There's a history of players who get more reps at the college level tend to pan out more frequently than guys who don't. It's Trubisky, 1-year starter, did not pan out. Caleb Williams, he's not a full 3 or 4 year starter, but 2 2/3 type seasons worth of starting games. That's going to play and give you a chance in the NFL. Number 2, he's been very productive at USC. He was productive his freshman year at Oklahoma when he did take over for Spencer Rattler. Now, obviously, Lincoln Riley offenses lead to production. We saw that with Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, etc., who all played under him in college. But he's been very, very good. The completion percentage has gone up every year. The touchdown to interception ratio has always been very, very impressive. He obviously won the Heisman Trophy last year. And he's mobile. He can run the football as well. Has just under 1,000 career rushing yards and 26 rushing touchdowns. Usually he uses his mobility to keep his eyes downfield as well. If anything, he probably could run a little bit more, but he does not. But he's dual threat. He can make big-time plays. He's been very, very productive. And that gets us to key number 3, which is a blessing and a curse. We'll talk about both sides of it here as we continue with the show. He is an incredible creator. He is a highlight reel quarterback. I mean, he makes plays that maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the NFL can make. Now, at times it gets him into trouble, which we'll talk about the cons side of Caleb Williams in a bit. But his ability to just kind of dance around in the pocket, use different arm angles, throw across the field, downfield, intermediate, create to run sometimes. Like, it's really impressive to watch, and it's fun to watch at times. There's no doubt about that. So you like having that in a QB prospect. The key is to keep it reined in, right? Knowing when to use that. And I think we've seen that with Justin Fields at times as well. But he's definitely very fun to watch. Like, if you're just talking about highlight reel plays, Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, advantage Caleb Williams. There's no doubt about that. Now, if you want Bears draft coverage for the next 6 months, we got you covered. Now, that doesn't mean it's only going to be draft coverage. We still have day-to-day content this season, free agency, lots of other stuff as well. But the draft is less than 6 months away, and the Bears are going to be picking very high in this draft. So we're going to be exploring quarterbacks, other prospects, mock drafts. We've got it all for Chicago Bears Now. Hit that sub button. Join the movement. It's going to be a lot of fun to see it all played out. Okay, coming up, pros and cons for Drake Maye as well. The North Carolina quarterback has a ton of talent. Also, we're going to dive into that. Producer Roley, a.k.a. Nick Roloff, he's a North Carolina football fan. Saw him play in person earlier this year. He'll give some thoughts on Drake Maye. Let's get to cons for Caleb Williams first. He holds the ball too long. a lot of the time. Not every play, not all the time. Doesn't mean he can't play within structure, but kind of like Justin Fields, which was a weakness of his coming out of college, still his top weakness in the NFL. At times, he holds the football too long. And now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't draft him like, well, this is just another Justin Fields. Like, every quarterback prospect's different. They all have different strengths. They all have different weaknesses. There could be reasons for different reasons for why he holds the ball too long. But in the NFL, you got to pick your spots on when to take that extra half second, full second to try and create a bigger play. You can't do it all the time. I think that's what's gotten Justin Fields into trouble is at times he's hunting the big play too much or he's just not seeing it quick enough. You've got to know when that internal clock goes off. And at times with Caleb Williams, it's definitely been a weakness for him. There's no doubt about it. Okay, Prize Picks, today's sponsor here on Chicago Bears Now. More, less, stat projections. It's that easy. That's all they ask you to do. Pick 2 to 6 players on any given entry, and if they will go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection. For example, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. Whenever you're watching this, you can pick a quarterback, you can pick a running back, you can pick a wide receiver, and if they will go for more or less than their stat projections, and you could throw that into one entry and win up to 25 times your money. Join rapper Meek Mill, comedian Andrew Schultz, and several other Prize Picks players and place your entries today. Oh, by the way, I should mention this as well. Not only can you make NFL picks, college football, college basketball, Major League Baseball is over, but when that's back, you can do that. NBA, NHL, tons of sports to make your entries on. Start cashing in today. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use our code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100 when you sign up. Check that link and promo code in the comments and in the description of this video. Couple more cons for Caleb Williams before we get to Drake Maye. Number 2, and I think this is a big one. He tries to be Superman too much. And this one kind of ties into con number 1. Sometimes you can just take the easy completion, but he wants to create something bigger. And sometimes it leads to an unreal 70-yard touchdown. Other times it leads to him fumbling the football, which he has a ton of fumbles, 30 fumbles at the college level. Like it's so many. You can't do that in the NFL and expect to get away with it that often. His creativity is a blessing and it's a curse. Sometimes you just got to take the easier play. It's been true with Justin Fields. Hey, quick 7-yard curl route, just throw it. It's there. Take the 7 yards, move on. Now, it's awesome when a play breaks down to have that mobility and the arm strength to make those 50-yard plays, but you're not going to do that 5, 6, 7 times a game. You got to pick your spots on when to do that, and I think at times this season in particular, Caleb Williams has gotten a little too greedy and has not always taken the easy play. He's tried to throw on that Superman cape a little bit too much. Okay, last one, and this is, you could say this is nitpicky. You could say it's super relevant. It's probably somewhere in the middle. His numbers dip pretty notably against top 25 teams. You look at this graphic from a few weeks ago that it was either ESPN or Fox. This might have been a Fox game. Non-top 25 total stats versus top 25 total stats. Pretty stark, right? Now, he's had a couple of duds in his career, which I think really deflate that. Like that Notre Dame game earlier this year, he played terrible. And so that really deflates it. Obviously, there's less volume there. So one really good or one really bad game can really sway the numbers there. So I think you have to keep that in mind. Also, what's noteworthy, this was a graphic before the Washington game, and I know USC lost this weekend, but Caleb Williams played really well in that game. So those numbers against top 25 opponents is actually better than what that graphic shows, but it is noteworthy. I mean, those are pretty stark numbers versus weaker competition and stronger competition. In the NFL, you're playing good teams every week, man. So you got to be able to play at a high level. Obviously, it's going to be different playing the Eagles versus playing, insert bad team on the schedule, the Arizona Cardinals, whatever the case may be. But you got to be able to play at a high level regardless of who you're playing. Okay, let's get to Drake Maye now. Pros and cons. He can make all of the throws from the pocket. I think that's what's really impressive for Drake Maye. And it doesn't mean Caleb Williams can't. It just, what I see from Drake Maye is he's more willing to stand in there and make all the throws from the pocket. And I think he is the better pocket quarterback. Some of that, I think he's got the framework of that. He's 6'5", 225. Caleb Williams at 6'1", sometimes he's got to move around to see over his offensive linemen. So you could add that into another check into Drake Maye. He's got the better physical build that you would like in a quarterback, but that is noteworthy. Number 2, a little less experience, but he is been very productive, just like Caleb Williams. He's put up some monster numbers in his 2 seasons as a starter for North Carolina. Been right around a 66% completion guy. 58 touchdowns to 12 picks in almost 2 full seasons now. He runs the ball pretty well. We'll talk about his mobility here in a sec. He's put up big numbers, and something hasn't had compared to Caleb Williams, although this year I'd say it's pretty even, to be honest. Caleb Williams last year in particular had much better talent around him. This year I think it's evened out. Jordan Addison's not at USC anymore. Drake Maye has Montez Walker, who's a pretty good player, but it's not like North Carolina has clear better talent than USC. And you see it with the rushing yards there, very underrated mobility. I mean, he's actually been more productive as a runner the past 2 seasons than Caleb Williams has. Now, I think sometimes Caleb Williams just keeps the eyes downfield and will throw more on times when he probably should run, but Maye's a willing runner. He will fight for first downs. You like that. Look, in today's NFL, if you don't have some dual threat ability, it's hard to come into this league and be a high-level quarterback from day one. So being able to move is very, very important. Now, let me ask you guys. Rolly was pissed when I put this question in the show today. Does Mitch Trubisky, former North Carolina quarterback, give you pause when the thought of drafting Drake Maye comes to mind? Type Y for yes or type in for no. I'm telling you it should not, but I want to know if it does. Be honest with me. Don't lie. Yes, no, what say you? Get your answers in the comments. Drake Maye cons. Only a 2-year starter. That only is kind of a tough word to use there because 2 years is pretty decent experience, especially nowadays where guys are just told to go. I mean, the money's too hard to pass up. So I'm not overly concerned there. I think 2 years of tape is certainly plenty. You'd love to have 3 like Caleb Williams is almost going to have, but I'm not overly concerned there. I don't think, 8, 9 extra starts, whatever the case may be, from Caleb Williams compared to Drake Maye is like the reason you take him over Drake Maye. But the point is every rep is critical. I think we've seen that with Tyson Bagent. I think a main reason he has made it in the NFL is because he had so many reps in college. I mean, the guy has played so much football that, yeah, he's got physical limitations, and sure, he may never be a high-level starter, but he's seen a lot. And, 2 years compared to 3 or 4 is certainly a notable difference there. Number 2, he does have careless plays at times. I was talking to Rolly. I was like, hey, give me a weakness here. And he goes, well, at times he'll be getting hit, he'll be getting sacked, and instead of just going down, he'll try to, throw the football off one leg while getting hit, kind of like Patrick Mahomes. He's, known for that. He'll have defenders, wrapped his feet around, and he still has the arm strength to make the throw. And it's okay, every once in a while, if it's a check down or something, yeah, still get it out. But what you can't have is trying to do too much and that leading to backbreaking turnovers. Sometimes it's okay to take a sack. And I would tell the same to Caleb Williams. He'll do Superman stuff, and then he'll end up fumbling. Sure, you love the big plays that happen as a result of that, but you got to find that balance, and I think that's true with both of these guys. And then number 3, it's not like something that can't be ingrained in him, but he hardly ever slides. I mentioned it earlier. He fights for first downs. He's a willing runner and willing to take hits, which, look, 3rd down, you got to convert. That's a different deal. But if it's 1st and 10 and you could get a first down by taking a hit from a linebacker or just taking 8 yards by sliding in front, just slide, man. Get to the next play. We've seen Justin Fields take way too many hits here in Chicago. Actually more in the pocket for holding the ball too long, but some as a runner as well. You just got to limit those. Otherwise, your career is going to be cut short because of that. So that should be an easy thing to coach into him. But I did want to mention just that. Before we get to the last question, I want to bring Rolly in here, get some thoughts going on Drake Maye as I've talked through the pros and cons. A lot of you guys know our producer, Nick Roloff, a.k.a. Rolly, big North Carolina football fan. He's seen Drake Maye play in person. obviously he's a big fan of his. So when you look at Drake Maye, and you can tie Caleb Williams into it, Rolly, you guys let us know. CW for Caleb Williams, DM for Drake Maye. Who would you rather have? What do you see? I mean, I know going into the season it was kind of not a joke, or I'd say more of a bit when you're like, oh, Drake Maye, he's better than Caleb Williams. Well, some national guys have now shifted in that direction here when you compare these two quarterbacks.
Well, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, and the reason why I've always been someone that, yes, it was more of a bit earlier on in the season. I didn't expect it to actually become this close 10 weeks into the college football season. But the reason why I was always thinking that Drake Maye could potentially be someone that is taken number 1 overall instead of Caleb Williams is because of his frame. He's 6'4", he's 6'5". It's been the lazy comparison, and I hate to make it as well, but he is very similar to Justin Herbert in the fact that he is so lengthy. He's mobile.
Dan Bergler said the same thing, by the way.
He has a rocket of an arm. So it feels like a lot of people are comparing him to Herbert. I know Dan Orlovsky did it last year. Brugler does it. Seems to be everybody's comparison. So I hate to just hop on that bandwagon and say he is Justin Herbert, like as a prospect. But he really can do it all. And both these guys, it's hard to really think of cons, as hard as it is to say that out loud. It feels nitpicking when you do try to say cons for these two quarterbacks. Listen, I think any two of these guys, it's hard to say that it's a guaranteed lock of a hit.
Yeah.
And I know we said this for that quarterback class with Fields, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. It's hard to think that these two guys are both not going to be good at all. Look, to me, they're both going to be top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL.
As you and I both know, as the chat knows, quarterback, a lot of it's fit, man. You got to have the right pieces in place. You got to have the right coaching staff. I'll say this. If Luke Getsy's the OC, I think Drake Maye's the better option.
That does make sense.
If you're asking someone to play with rhythm and structure, I think Drake Maye's the better option. But even then, I still don't want Getsy because Maye is a good when-the-play breakdown quarterback as well. Like you want him to do those things when the time is right. So we'll see, man. I mean, we're going to talk about these two quarterbacks a lot over the next several months. We'll dive into some other ones as well. J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, Quinn Ewers. We'll continue to crank out the draft coverage, which is why you subscribe to the channel, because let's be honest, it's going to be an interesting few months to see what Ryan Poles ends up doing at the QB position. That's why you subscribe. We'll see you soon.